What oath can survive 10,000 years of silence and still demand blood when spoken aloud? The question drifts like a dying star's last whisper over the ashen plains of Callistus Ix, where the wind carries prayers that have outlived their makers. Once, pilgrims walked these roads with lanterns held high. Now only dust remains dust, and the echo of a name few dare to utter. Gadriel, the guardian who never broke. His story does not begin with triumph, nor with glory, but with the quiet sound of a kneeling warrior pressing his forehead to cold stone, swearing a vow so absolute it scorched itself into the warp. It is said the oath still lingers in the citadel where he spoke it, trembling faintly like a wound that refuses to heal, as though reality itself remembers the words better than any mortal tongue could. They saw him first as a statue, monolithic, bronze-limbed, standing vigil before the gates of benediction, with a posture so still it unsettled even battle-hardened troopers. For 3 days he did not move. For 3 nights he did not blink. When the sun finally rose on the 4th morning, fracturing across his armor's obsidian plates, he stirred at last, but only to ask a single question of the chaplain who approached. Where is the threat? Ever since, his presence cast a gravity few could ignore, a celestial weight, like standing beneath a sky about to split open. Some whispered he was too rigid, too unyielding, as if he held himself together through will alone, as if to relax for even a moment might shatter him entirely. There were times, rare brief, when one might find him alone in the sanctum of thorns before the reliquary candles. He would kneel there with his hands clasped so tightly the ceramite groaned, the light reflecting in the faint silver scars that traced his helm-like spiderweb fractures. He never prayed with words. Instead, he stared at the flickering flame, as if trying to remember what warmth was. A young acolyte once approached him, hoping for wisdom. Gadriel merely touched the boy's shoulder, voice low as collapsing stone. Never swear lightly, child. Oaths are seeds, they grow teeth. After that, the acolyte avoided him with reverent fear, unsure whether the warning was meant for him or for the universe itself. When war finally came, it came like an eclipse, silent at first. Then, all at once, the skies tore open with the shriek of metal, drop pods vomiting fire as they struck the surface in burning arcs. Out of the inferno strode the servants of a dark, forgotten legion, their banners stitched with symbols that pulsed like fresh wounds. The first shots carved red trails through the air, and the defenders faltered beneath the sudden, brutal weight of the assault. But not Gadriel. He stepped forward alone, each motion deliberate, each strike a perfect execution of purpose. His blade sang, as if delighted to taste blood again, carving shimmering crescents through smoke-thick air. Those who watched said he moved like inevitability, incarnate a force that did not rage, but simply was, the calm eye at the center of a whirlwind, determined to tear the world apart. Yet even the mighty stumble, amid the frenzy of war. Gadriel found himself before the shattered gates of the Basilica Noctis, where a creature wrought of despair and sorcery clawed its way from the breach. Its voice was the sound of forgotten funerals, its limbs dragging trails of frost across the stone. Many fled, a few froze. Gadriel simply raised his shield. The creature whispered his name in 1,000 broken tongues, promising release, promising peace, promising the warm embrace of oblivion. For a moment, just a moment, Gadriel hesitated, and in that heartbeat, those who saw swore the light in his eyes dimmed, as though some buried memory had clawed its way up from the abyss to seize him. Then the hesitation vanished. With a roar that cracked masonry, he drove his blade through the creature's skull, splitting prophecy from flesh. After the battle, silence swathed the city like a burial shroud. Fires smoldered, statues lay broken. The surviving defenders gathered in the ruins, whispering uncertainly about what they had witnessed. Gadriel remained apart, standing atop the basilica steps, helmet tilted as though listening for something distant and terrible. The chaplain approached once more, asking if he sought absolution. Gadriel did not turn. "Absolution is for those who regret," he murmured. "I have no luxury for regret." The chaplain sensed it, then a fracture not in armor, but in spirit. Something haunted the guardian, something ancient and private, coiled around the center of his oath, like a serpent guarding a wound. Word of Gadriel's deeds spread across the subsector, drawing praise from commanders and reverent awe from the faithful. But with the stories came darker whispers, that the guardian fought not for glory or duty, but to drown out something he feared to face. Some said he had once faltered in an oath long ago, costing an entire world its life. Others believed he had sworn fidelity to a fallen brother, now twisted beyond recognition. The truth, like all truths in the Imperium, was buried under centuries of ash and rewritten scripture. But whatever the past held, Gadriel's present remained unwavering. He stepped into every war zone, as if answering a summons only he could hear, carving a path through conflict with the same grim precision, ever yielding, never breaking, never bending. Then came the arrival of the relic, a shard of obsidian glass, retrieved from the deepest vault beneath the ruins of St. Enoch's shrine. It pulsed faintly, like a dying heartbeat. The moment Gadriel touched it, the air rippled. Witnesses claimed shadows shuddered away from him, recoiling like frightened animals. His gauntlet trembled, his helm lowered. For the first time in living memory, the Guardian whispered a word that sounded like fear. He demanded to know where the shard had been found, who had disturbed it, and what inscriptions adorned the chamber walls. The priests stammered answers, but Gadriel's mind seemed elsewhere, fixated on the shard, as though it were a mirror reflecting a face he had long tried to forget. It was that night the visions came. He strode through the deserted halls of the citadel, the shard clutched in his hand, ghostlight bleeding from its fractured surface. The walls groaned with every step, as if the entire fortress resented the thing he carried. Gadriel saw flickers memories, not his, or perhaps ones he had buried. A battlefield drowned in ash, a warrior kneeling in the rain, a vow spoken through clenched teeth, a brother falling. And above it all, a voice he had hoped time had extinguished. "You swore to guard me, brother. Where were you when the sky burned?" Gadriel collapsed to one knee, gauntlets digging into the stone, the shard humming like an accusation delivered by the dead. By dawn, something had changed in him. The citadel's inhabitants sensed it instantly, stepping back as he descended the central staircase, silent as a funeral procession. His movements were slower now, heavier, as if each step was a negotiation with gravity. He placed the shard upon the war table with ritual care and declared that a forgotten world one struck from imperial records needed to be found. None dared question him, though many felt the tremor of dread ripple through the chamber. The Guardian's voice carried a new edge, something sharp and sorrowful, like a blade honed by morning. Those who watched him leave felt an unspoken certainty. Whatever awaited him on that lost world was not victory, but reckoning. The fleet departed under a sky thick with storm clouds. As Gadriel stood upon the command deck, the stars stretched into argent threads across the void, yet his gaze remained fixed upon a single dying light on the star map 1, that pulsed in the exact rhythm of the shard's glow. He said nothing. He did not need to. The crew felt the tension coil around him, a silent storm gathering behind his eyes. When the chaplain approached to offer counsel, Gadriel only replied, "Some truths must be faced with blade in hand." But even as he spoke, a flicker crossed his face, plain echo of the hesitation he had shown before the creature at the basilica. This journey was no crusade. It was a confrontation with the past, and with the oath that had forged him. As the ship slipped deeper into the uncharted expanse, alarms shivered across the bridge. Strange readings rippled through the void, ghost signatures, broken transmissions, a whisper of something vast and slumbering. Gadriel leaned forward, narrowing his gaze as luminous static blossomed across the display, like cracks in reality itself. Then a final message pulsed through the distortion, just for words. 4 words that froze him in place, that made even the stoic guardian's breath catch in his throat, that turned the shard at his side into a cold weight of dread. The words flickered once more before vanishing into the dark. "He waits for you." And far beyond the reach of Imperial light, a forgotten world woke. The bridge lights dimmed, as if the ship itself were holding its breath. Those 4 words, "He waits for you," hung in the air long after the transmission died, like a wound that refused to close. A young Vox officer, cheeks pale beneath the glow of his console, murmured a prayer under his breath. To him, the Guardian was more myth than man. Yet seeing Gadriel stand motionless before the fractured display felt like witnessing a statue crack. The chaplain's rosarius flickered as he approached, whispering a litany meant to settle the crew's nerves, but each syllable only deepened the dread. Gadriel's gaze never left the void, his voice low and measured when he finally spoke. "Prepare for descent." No one dared ask into what. Outside, the stars throbbed with a color that wasn't entirely real, something between memory and omen guiding them toward a world even the Emperor's maps had chosen to forget. They pierced the atmosphere like a rusted spear, the ship's plating groaning in protest as fire washed across its hull. Below, the planet stretched vast and wounded, its continents shattered by old scars. Ash storms churned across valleys where cities had once lifted monuments in the Emperor's name. The landing bay shuddered open, revealing a sepulchral calm that swallowed sound. Troopers marched out in formation, boots sinking into dust that smelled faintly of burnt incense and long-dead sanctity. Among them walked Sister Eli's, her parchment-trapped armor etched with litanies of martyrdom. She felt the land's sorrow thrumming through her greaves, as if the soil itself mourned. "A world that remembers what we forgot," she whispered. Gadriel did not turn, did not acknowledge the weight of her words. His stride carried him forward, like a blade driven toward its destined target. The ruins of the outer settlement rose like ribs of a colossal corpse. Twisted arches jutted from the ground at violent angles, broken icons of saints scattered like bones along the path. Sergeant Hask, whose voice normally boomed with battlefield confidence, found himself whispering as he examined the remnants of a devotional mural. The faces had been chiseled away with deliberate cruelty. Only one figure remained untouched, a towering warrior kneeling before a fallen brother, their helms nearly touching in shared despair. Hask shivered. "Looks like him," another soldier murmured, glancing toward Gadriel's broad silhouette. The Guardian paused before the mural, fingertips tracing the intact figure's bowed crest. Dust drifted around him like funerary ash. His voice, when it came, was soft, almost human. This world remembers the sin of oathbreakers, even if we do not. And then he moved on, leaving the mural to stare accusingly after them. In the heart of the ruins, they found signs that life had not abandoned the planet entirely. Lanterns flickered in half-collapsed temples, casting swaying halos across cracked mosaics. A group of robed figures emerged from the shadows, their faces gaunt yet resolute. They bowed deeply before Gadriel, though fear trembled beneath their reverence. Their leader, a priestess named Malcora, spoke with a voice like parchment torn by wind. "We kept the vigil, Guardian, even when the Imperium forgot us." Her words stirred unrest among the soldiers' murmurs of disbelief, anger, guilt. Gadriel studied her, helm tilted slightly. "Why remain loyal to those who abandoned you?" he asked. Malcora smiled, brittle but sincere. "Loyalty is not for the Emperor's gaze, it is for ours." Her answer hung heavily, unsettling in its clarity. The Imperium taught loyalty as a duty. Here, it was a burden willingly carried. Night fell like a shroud, heavy and oppressive. Fires crackled in hastily erected camps, their light swallowed by the planet's unnatural gloom. Troopers huddled close, whispering theories that frayed at the edges of sanity. Lieutenant Veros, ever skeptical, found himself studying the horizon where pale sigils shimmered faintly atop distant monoliths. "Warp bleed," he muttered, though the word felt insufficient. Sister Elise knelt beside him, offering a quiet prayer to anchor his thoughts. She felt the presence to a pressure behind the eyes, a voice muffled beneath layers of static. Veros looked toward Gadriel, who stood apart on a crumbled dais, speaking softly to the obsidian shard. Each time its dull glow pulsed, the ground seemed to tremble in response. "What binds him to this place?" Veros asked. Elise shook her head. "Or what this place binds within him," she whispered. At dawn, the truth began to unravel. Gadriel led them to an obsidian spire buried in the valley, its surface carved with runes that drank in the light. Malcora followed, her expression taut with dread. "This is where he died," she whispered, gesturing toward the spire. Confusion rippled through the ranks. Gadriel ignored it. He approached the monument with reverent precision, tracing each rune as if reacquainting himself with forgotten scripture. The shard at his belt hummed violently, resonating with the monolith. Soldiers stepped back, weapons raised, instincts flaring. The spire responded its carvings, flaring with ghostly light, revealing scenes etched in living shadow. A warrior fell. Another knelt beside him. An oath was sworn through blood and anguish. Then the vision shifted, the fallen warrior rising again, twisted by corruption, whispering the same 4 words that had echoed through the void. "He waits for you." The visions shattered into dust and wind, leaving silence in their wake. Commander Thale, hardened by 4 decades of crusades, demanded answers. "What are we walking into?" Gadriel turned slowly, the weight of his helm seeming heavier than ever. "A promise," he said. "One I failed to keep." Murmurs of disquiet surged. Thale pressed on, voice taut with restrained fury. "You led us here without revealing the truth." Gadriel's retort was quiet but unyielding. "You would not have followed if you had known." Veros felt anger bloom in his chestnut at Gadriel, but at the realization forming like rot behind the Guardian's words. This was not a mission. This was contrition, a pilgrimage into the corpse of a lie. Before Thale could reply, the ground convulsed beneath them, sending soldiers sprawling. The spire split along its seams, and something breathed beneath it. The fissure exhaled a cold mist, swirling with fragments of whispered prayers. Shapes moved within warped, half-formed silhouettes of what might once have been human. Sister Eli's raised her bolter, lips trembling through a litany. The creatures emerged in twitching waves, skin stretched thin over luminous veins, eyes hollow yet pleading. Not demons, not men, something in between. Malcora fell to her knees, weeping. These were the faithful, the ones who waited for salvation. Veros recoiled. Why are they like this? Gadriel's voice was a blade drawn slow. Because I did not come. The creatures surged forward, not in rage but desperation, reaching for him as if he were a memory made flesh. He stepped toward them, unflinching. Back, Thale barked, but the Guardian ignored him. He spoke to the warped masses softly, almost tenderly. I am here, now. And for a moment, they stilled. Then all hell broke open. From the deepest part of the fissure rose a figure taller than any mortal, its armor corroded yet unmistakably Astartes in origin. A plume of blackened smoke curled from its helm vents, and its voice tore through reality like a serrated blade. Brother, you are late. The corrupted warrior stepped into the light, revealing a face twisted far beyond the Emperor's mercy. The troops panicked. Thale raised his power sword. Eli's froze in horror. Veros dropped into firing stance. But Gadriel simply whispered the name he had buried centuries ago. The creature laughed, a sound that cracked stone. You swore to guard me. Did your oath taste sweet as you abandoned me to the dark? The air thickened with psychic pressure, bending the campfires into serpent shapes. Gadriel finally drew his blade, the sound a death knell. I did not abandon you, he said. I failed you. The corrupted brother advanced, each step shaking the valley. Then fail again, he hissed. Fail, and watch them suffer as I did. Behind him, the twisted faithful writhed in torment, their bodies responding to their lord's agony. Thale shouted for retreat. Veros fired a volley that dissolved mid-air. Elise clutched her rosary so tightly it cut her skin. Malcora screamed for them to stop, but the world had already chosen sides. The spire blazed with blinding light, revealing symbols buried beneath centuries of ash. Imperial, heretical, contradictory, a truth scribbled over by 1,000 years of revision. And as the corrupted warrior raised his blade toward Gadriel, the final revelation struck like lightning. The sigil carved into the spire's base was not a mark of chaos, but the insignia of an imperial order that no longer existed in any official archive. An order purged from memory. The betrayal was imperial, and the Guardian had returned to the world the Imperium itself had condemned. The ground trembled as the corrupted warrior stepped from the fissure fully, towering above the living and the damned alike. Ash spiraled around him like a shroud, trying to escape its bearer. Gadriel remained motionless, but those closest saw the brief tightening of his stance, the ghost of an old sorrow passing through him. Sister Eli's felt it too, not through sight, but through faith. Her rosary burned against her palm, each bead pulsing like a frantic heartbeat. Behind her, the loyal troopers muttered fractured prayers, unsure if they begged for deliverance or blindness. The corrupted brother raised his blade toward the sigil at the spire's base, the imperial insignia long erased from history. They condemned us, he growled, not for heresy, for obedience. The truth twisted through the soldiers like a spear, leaving no hope clean, no loyalty certain. Gadriel lifted his sword, whispering a vow that sounded like regret sculpted into sound. A storm of warp light burst across the valley, swallowing the ruins in a luminous tide. The sky split open to reveal the rotting underbelly of reality, seething colors, impossible geometries, echoes of voices that had died 1,000 years ago. Troopers clutched their helmets as visions bled into their minds. Chained saints screaming in silence. Burning cities rebuilt only to be burned again. A throne of golden light cracking under unseen weight. Lieutenant Veros staggered, choking on the taste of iron and fear as a memory not his own forced itself upon him. Gadriel kneeling beside the corrupted brother before their fall, both swearing to protect a world the Imperium had already marked for erasure. Veros collapsed to one knee, whispering, "We were never meant to win here." The admission felt like treason, even inside his skull. Above him, Gadriel pushed through the storm, each step defying the warp's grip. As the warp withdrew like a tide of shadows, they saw what it had revealed. A ring of broken statues encircling the valley, each carved in the likeness of an Astartes, kneeling before a central figure whose face had been deliberately smashed away. Sister Eli's approached, fingertips trembling as she traced the shattered visage. The priestess Malcora joined her, voice soft with centuries of grief. This was their commander, the one who tried to shield us from the Imperium's decree. Eli's shook her head, but the sigil, it was imperial. Why purge a world that remained faithful? Malcora turned her hollow eyes toward Gadriel and his corrupted brother, locked in silent tension. Because loyalty is only useful when it obeys. The words struck Eli's with sickening clarity. Faith, she realized, was not the same as approval, and the Emperor's light could be used as easily to blind as to guide. Thunder rolled across the valley as the corrupted brother lunged, his blade sweeping down in an arc meant to cleave both armor and memory. Gadriel parried, sparks erupting like dying stars. The impact cracked the ground, sending troopers scrambling for cover as shockwaves rippled outward. Their duel was not fast, it was heavy, burdened by centuries of unspoken grief. Every strike felt ritualistic, as though they relived a moment that had shaped them both. The corrupted warrior roared, "You let them erase us." Gadriel countered with a blow that sent shards of obsidian flying. "They erased you because I survived." The admission froze the battlefield. Even the twisted faithful recoiled. For a heartbeat, the corrupted brother faltered, helm tilting, as if absorbing a wound no blade could inflict. Gadriel pressed forward, his voice trembling. "I was forced to watch your death be rewritten, and I swore I would never break again." Silence swallowed the battlefield, deep as a tomb. Then the corrupted brother laughed, a sound both joyous and agonized. "Then this was always your prison," he said, lowering his blade. The ground screamed as black fissures spread outward from the spire, revealing chambers beneath the surface. Through the cracks, soldiers glimpsed murals preserved by darkness, Gadriel leading refugees, defying orders to abandon them, the Imperium branding him an oathbreaker for refusing to sacrifice a loyal world deemed strategically inconvenient. Eli stumbled back, breath stolen. "He was condemned for mercy," she whispered. Veros swallowed hard, looking at Gadriel with new, uncertain eyes, and they erased it, all of it. The truth weighed on them like a collapsing cathedral. Everything they had believed about loyalty, purity, and obedience now writhed in a pit of contradictions. The spire pulsed with sickly light, as if the world itself remembered the betrayal. From the ruins beneath, something began to awaken. A deep, harmonic vibration pulsed through the valley, resonating with stone, flesh, and thought alike. The corrupted brother stepped back from Gadriel, lowering his weapon completely, his breath fogging the air. "Do you feel it?" he asked, voice trembling with revelation. "The world remembers us. It remembers the oath you tried to keep." The ground split open fully, revealing a colossal machine temple buried beneath centuries of ash. Its central reliquary pulsed with the same rhythm as the obsidian shard. Gadriel felt the resonance drilling into his bones, dredging up memories he had long sealed away. His plea to save the planet, the command he defied, the punishment he accepted. The warp-scarred air shimmered, as if reacting to his rising anguish. Malcora dropped to her knees, chanting prayers of awakening. "The heart of memory opens," she proclaimed, "and it seeks judgment." An explosion of light burst from the depths, throwing soldiers aside like scattered leaves. Sister Eli's shielded her eyes as a figure rose from the fissure, neither man nor machine, but a relic construct built to preserve truth itself. Its frame bore inscriptions in languages predating the Imperium, its chest housing a crystalline core burning with pure, unfiltered remembrance. Veros aimed his rifle instinctively, but the weapon refused to fire, its machine spirit overwhelmed. The construct spoke in 1,000 overlapping voices. This world was marked innocent, its defenders faithful, its fall political. Gasps rippled through the troops. Gadriel trembled, fists clenching. The construct turned to him. "You were chosen to carry the truth. But when the censure came, you accepted silence." The accusation struck deeper than any blade. Gadriel stepped back, voice cracking. I thought silence was the last mercy I could offer." The construct's light flickered. "Mercy is not truth." The corrupted brother surged forward, rage and revelation boiling within him. "You let them turn us into monsters to preserve their illusion of purity." Gadriel's armor creaked as he straightened, anguish shifting into defiant resolve. No more illusions. Warp winds tore across the valley as the construct opened its core fully, releasing streams of spectral memory. The truth engulfed the soldiers, forcing them to witness centuries of manipulation. Worlds sacrificed not for corruption, but for convenience. Heroes branded heretics to hide the sins of high command. Loyalty twisted into a noose. The visions left many sobbing, others silent with hollow-eyed disbelief. Eli's felt her faith fracturing, not breaking, but reshaping into something sharper, painfully honest. The Emperor's light did not dim. It simply revealed the shadows cast by those who claimed to represent it. Then the construct's light dimmed abruptly, its massive frame trembling. Something ancient and furious stirred beneath the panorama of memory. Gadriel sensed it first. A consciousness woven into the world's core, awakened by the truth's release. Malcora recoiled in horror. The planet itself awakens and it is angry. The corrupted brother stepped back, helm snapping toward the fissure. We were not the only ones buried. The ground thundered as monolithic shapes moved beneath the surface, tanic structures shifting, aligning, activating. Eli's felt divine nausea, as if reality itself were preparing to split. Gadriel realized too late what the truth had unleashed. The heart of memory was not merely a vault. It was a weapon forged to punish the Imperium should it ever betray its principles. And it recognized betrayal now. All betrayal, everywhere. A deep hum rose, vibrating through marrow and metal alike. Veros clutched his ears as the planet's core began broadcasting the truth through the warp with unstoppable force. Across the sector, minds would receive it. Faith would collapse. Empires would fracture. Gadriel looked upon the rising apocalypse with horror. "Stop it," he pleaded to the construct. If the Imperium falls, humanity dies with it. The construct looked at him with the cold purity of a recorder of facts. Truth demands consequence. Gadriel stepped closer, desperation cracking his tone. Then let consequence fall on me. The construct paused, and the planet trembled as if considering his offering. The corrupted brother stared in disbelief. You would sacrifice yourself now, after all this? Gadriel turned to him, voice steady for the first time. Not sacrifice. Then the world made its decision. A beam of crystalline light shot from the heart and struck Gadriel square in the chest, lifting him from the ground. His armor cracked, his helm shattered, his scream swallowed by the roar of awakening stone. The corrupted brother lunged too late. Eli's cried out his name. Varos reached toward him with shaking hands. The light devoured him yet did not kill him. When it receded, Gadriel stood transformed. His armor glowed with etched patterns, identical to the ancient murals, his eyes burning with the full memory of the lost world. The construct bowed its titanic head. The guardian who never broke, it intoned, now becomes the warden of truth. And for the first time in 10,000 years, Gadriel remembered everything, and that truth would change the fate of the Imperium forever. The valley fell into a silence so absolute it seemed to swallow even thought. Gadriel stood at its center, transformed by the heart's judgment, his armor etched with luminous veins of truth that pulsed like a living scripture. Soldiers stared at him, as one might regard an angel or an executioner able to decide which stood before them. Sister Eli's felt tears burn behind her eyes, not from sorrow, but from the overwhelming weight of witnessing a man reforged by something older than the Imperium itself. The corrupted brother stepped back, his corrupted flesh twitching at the resonance now radiating from Gadriel's form. "Do you hear it?" Gadriel whispered, his voice layered, both mortal and echoing with ancient authority. The corrupted warrior nodded once, trembling. The world remembers, and now it demands an answer. The air thickened, the storm gathering above them like a verdict waiting to fall. Distant thunder rumbled across the fractured sky as the heart of memory began to pulse again. Slower now, deeper, as though the planet held its breath. Commander Thale approached with hesitant steps, his power sword lowered but not sheathed. The men behind him shifted uneasily, trapped between fear of their newly anointed guardian and fear of disobeying him. "What happens now?" Thale asked, voice cracking despite decades of hardened discipline. Gadriel lifted his gaze toward the horizon, where ancient towers were emerging from beneath centuries of stone, their surfaces glowing as if awakening to forgotten orders. "The truth spreads," he said, "and the Imperium will come to silence it." Tal's stomach twisted. He had fought rebels, heretics, Xenos, but never truth itself. The thought of turning their guns against their own history made him feel suddenly very small, like a child lost in a cathedral too large to understand. The corrupted brother walked a slow circle around Gadriel, studying the transformed armor with something between awe and resentment. "You carry what they could not destroy," he said, "the memory they tried to bury." Gadriel did not flinch as the corrupted warrior leaned close, whispering, "Will you wield it against them, or let them erase us again?" For a moment, Gadriel's luminous eyes dimmed. The burden of truth was heavier than any blade he had ever carried, and he felt cracks forming in his resolve. "I do not seek to break the Imperium," he murmured, "only to force it to face what it has become." The corrupted brother snarled softly, "That is a war more dangerous than any demon." Above them, Lightning split the clouds, revealing orbital silhouette shapes moving into position. Elise saw them first and felt her heart collapse inward. Reinforcements were already coming. Sister Elise fell to her knees, clutching her rosary so tightly her knuckles tore open. "The Emperor tests us," she whispered, though doubt gnawed at every word. She prayed not for victory, but for clarity, anything to preserve a shred of meaning in the chaos unraveling around her. Visions flickered at the edges of her mind, burning cities, screaming saints, the golden throne shuddering under unseen strain. Then she saw Gadriel in those visions, standing before the Emperor himself, his luminous armor reflecting a light too bright to look at. Yet even in holy radiance, Gadriel's expression was not joyful, it was sorrowful. Faith without truth is hollow, she realized aloud, the words trembling from her as if spoken by another voice. When she rose again, her resolve hardened. She no longer knew what the Emperor wanted, but she knew what was right, and she would stand by it. The ground beneath them shuddered as more of the buried machine temple freed itself from stone. Great pillars unfurled like awakening giants, each inscribed with the names of the fallen, names long purged from Imperial records. Veros ran his fingers across one of the engravings, his breath catching when he recognized a surname lost in his own family's history. "We were never meant to forget," he whispered. The realization stung more than any battlefield wound. All this time he had fought in the name of unity, purity, and divine order, yet here lay proof that the Imperium's foundations were cracked with sanctioned lies. Gadriel approached quietly, his new radiance casting long shadows behind them. "Will you stand with me, Veros?" Gadriel asked. Veros turned toward him, tears shining on dust-covered cheeks. "I don't know what standing means anymore." Gadriel placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then learn with me." Malcora raised her staff toward the rising monoliths, chanting an ancient hymn of reawakening. The twisted faithful echoed the song with voices like wind scraping across stone. The sound was haunting, mournful, yet undeniably beautiful. As the hymn built, the corrupted brother convulsed, clutching his helm. The song resonated within him like a truth he could neither accept nor banish. Gadriel reached for him, but the corrupted warrior struck his hand away. "Don't pity me," he spat. "You carry the truth. I carry its consequences." His voice cracked with centuries of agony. "I was loyal, Gadriel, too loyal, and they made me a monster because it was convenient." Gadriel's reply was a whisper. "Let me share your burden." The corrupted brother bared his teeth in something not quite a smile. "You already do. That is the curse of oaths." The storm above intensified, swirling into a vortex of black and gold, the colors of judgment and divinity colliding. Elise shouted a warning as streaks of light pierced the cloud's drop pods descending, their contrails carving burning lines across the sky. Thale cursed under his breath. "Imperial retribution," he growled. "They're coming to secure the truth." Veros shook his head. "No, they're coming to kill it." The corrupted brother stepped forward, blade humming with psychic fury. "Let them come," he said. "I have waited centuries for justice." Gadriel raised a hand, stopping him. "Justice is not vengeance." The corrupted warrior laughed darkly, spoken like someone who never died for it. Their gazes locked, old wounds and old love twisting between them. Above, pods slammed into the earth, metal screeching as they embedded like iron seeds of destruction. The ground shook as the first of the reinforcements emerged, purity seals fluttering like the wings of carrion birds. From the lead, drop pod strode an inquisitor, clad in dark, immaculate armor, his presence radiating authority, sharpened into cruelty. His eyes swept the scene with clinical disdain, lingering on the monuments, then on the mutated faithful, and finally, on Gadriel himself. Abomination, he declared. You wear the sins of this world like armor. Gadriel stepped forward, unbowed. I wear its truth. The Inquisitor smiled thinly. Truth is what we say it is. At his signal, squads of stormtroopers fanned out, weapons trained on Gadriel, Eli's, Varos, even Thale. The battlefield became a taut wire, ready to snap. Eli's raised her hands, pleading. This world was faithful. Its fall was engineered. The Inquisitor dismissed her with a gesture. Faith is irrelevant when order is threatened. Gadriel felt something inside him harden an old fracture ceiling into a blade-sharp certainty. This was why he had been remade. The heart of memory pulsed violently, reacting to the presence of the Inquisitor like a wound reopening. The monoliths responded, their glowing runes shifting into new patterns. Gadriel suddenly understood. They were not monuments, they were conduits. The truth the heart sought to broadcast could become a weapon or a beacon, depending on who commanded it. The Inquisitor saw it too, and fury contorted his face. You will not unleash this heresy, he snarled. Gadriel stepped between him and the heart, luminous armor brightening. I will not let the Imperium bury another loyal world. The Inquisitor's weapon hummed with killing power. Then you are already dead. Before he could fire, the corrupted brother leaped forward, intercepting the strike with his own massive frame. The blast tore through corrupted armor, ripping open old wounds. He staggered, but did not fall, his voice a rasping snarl. Not this time. Gadriel caught his brother as he collapsed, the corrupted flesh flickering between what it had become and what it once had been. For a heartbeat, the monstrous visage faded, revealing the face of the warrior Gadriel had once sworn to protect. A face filled not with rage, but relief. I waited so long, he whispered. Gadriel leaned close, tears cutting lines through grime and luminous dust. I know. The corrupted brother's hand tightened weakly around his arm. Don't let them rewrite us again. His grip relaxed. The monstrous taint receded like a dying shadow. Gadriel closed his eyes as the last breath slipped away, leaving only silence. A silence so deep, even the storm paused. Eli's bowed her head, Varos saluted, Malcora wept openly. The Inquisitor raised his weapon again, his voice cutting through the grief like a blade. And now we finish the rest. Gadriel rose slowly, placing his fallen brother's body gently upon the ground. His eyes blazed with a clarity that felt older than stars. The heart of memory responded, its crystalline core flaring with synchronizing luminescence. The monoliths resonated like a choir of awakening titans. The storm above churned into a spiraling vortex of black and gold, its center aligning directly above Gadriel. Eli's felt the pull of destiny thick in the air, as if the galaxy itself leaned closer to witness the moment. Varos gripped his rifle, torn between fear and awe. Thale muttered a prayer, whose ending he had forgotten centuries ago. Gadriel lifted his face toward the storm, the luminous patterns on his armor burning brighter than any star. This ends now, he said, though whether it was a vow or a sentence, none could tell. The Inquisitor shouted orders, and the moment before, history changed forever. The world held its breath. Thunder rolled across the valley as the storm broke open, a wound in the sky bleeding gold and shadow. Gadriel stepped forward, each footfall ringing like a bell of judgment. The Inquisitor's forces advanced in tight formation, boots drumming a rhythm of execution. Elise felt the air vibrate with the heart's rising pulse, a sound like 1,000 whispered testimonies trying to speak at once. Sparks of memory drifted from the monoliths, brushing her armor like falling embers. Gadriel raised his hand, not to strike, but to warn, yet fate had already begun its descent. A stormtrooper fired. The lawsbolt cracked the air. Gadriel's luminous armor flared, absorbing the hit in a burst of radiant fury. The mountains answered with echoing roars, as though ancient spirits awoke within the stone. In that shuddering instant, the truth felt alive, sentient, ready to tear free from time's long imprisonment. The Inquisitor shouted for full assault, his voice sharp as a blade drawn across bone. Bolter fire erupted. Explosions flayed the earth. The corrupted faithful surged forward, chanting broken hymns as they collided with the stormtroopers in a clash of steel and doctrine. Gadriel moved through the chaos with impossible grace, each motion leaving an afterimage of light, like memory reshaping the battlefield. Veros fired disciplined volleys, each shot purchased with a whispered curse against the lies he had defended for decades. Thale rallied his remaining men, torn between the Imperium he had sworn to protect and the truth now burning before him. Eli saw soldiers fall, screaming into the mud. She saw others rise, driven by purpose they could not name. Above them, the storm screamed louder, spiraling toward an unbearable crescendo. Every heartbeat felt like a verdict, every breath a confession. The world itself trembled at what was coming. The heart of memory tore free of its cradle, rising above the battlefield like a shard of a forgotten star. Its radiance flooded the valley, casting long shadows that writhed with ancient recollection. Images rippled across its crystalline surface, cities burning, saints weeping, worlds erased, not by heresy but by decree. Gadriel staggered as the visions poured through him, their weight nearly crushing his reborn soul. He felt the screams of 1,000 betrayed worlds. He felt the mercy denied to them. The knowledge burned, yet he did not break. The Inquisitors stared, horror dawning slowly, like a man seeing his reflection in the executioner's blade. "Shut it down," he commanded, voice cracking with fury and fear. But the heart no longer listened. It spoke. Its voice was a storm of mourning, echoing through metal and memory alike. Elise wept openly, unable to bear the sorrow that washed through her. Malcora lifted her staff and began a chant older than any cathedral hymn, her voice resonating with the heart's sorrow. The corrupted faithful joined her, their warped throats producing sounds that vibrated deep within bone. The monoliths trembled, their runes shifting as though rewriting themselves. Gadriel felt the ground beneath him becoming warm, then hot, as the planet's buried machinery awakened fully. The Inquisitor unleashed psychic might in a roaring beam of searing light, striking the heart with the full weight of sanctioned authority. Instead of shattering, the heart absorbed the attack, magnified it, and flung it back in a wave of blinding radiance. Stormtroopers fell, screaming, clutching their bleeding eyes. Veros shielded Elise with his body as debris rained down like shrapnel from a dying god. Malcora's chant grew louder, desperate. The heart surged brighter, a sun being born in the dust. Gadriel realized the truth, then painful, merciless, absolute. The heart was not meant to reveal history. It was meant to choose its bearer, and it had chosen him, not to unleash vengeance, but to command remembrance, to prevent burial, to break the endless cycle of manufactured purity. He turned to Elise, his voice trembling. "If I survive this, I cannot remain what I was." She nodded, tears tracing lines through ash on her cheeks. "Then become what you must. The Inquisitor rose amid the chaos, armor cracked, aura blazing with sanctioned wrath. You will not rewrite the Imperium, he snarled. I will burn this world to dust before I allow it. But Gadriel no longer feared him. He stepped forward, luminous armor blazing, memories swirling around him like celestial fire. The storm parted above, revealing a sky carved by destiny. The Inquisitor struck first, a psychic lance splitting the air with a shriek that tore through stone. Gadriel intercepted it with an outstretched hand, the impact shaking his entire body. Light and shadow clashed in a violent storm, swirling around them like angels and demons locked in eternal struggle. Gadriel advanced slow, relentless. The Inquisitor poured every ounce of sanctioned power into him, but the luminous armor, etched by truth itself, held firm. Eli's watched with breath caught in her throat. Veros could only stare, his rifle forgotten. Malcora collapsed to her knees, whispering prayers in a forgotten tongue. Gadriel reached the Inquisitor, placing a hand upon his chestplate. The contact sent a shockwave rippling outward. The Inquisitor screamed as visions flooded him, truths he had condemned, histories he had erased, innocence he had damned. He fell, trembling, not defeated by power, but by memory. The storm above fractured into swirling halos of gold and black. Lightning struck the monoliths, binding them with crackling tendrils of energy. The heart hovered higher, spiraling into alignment with the storm's center. The planet's buried machinery roared awake, deep as the growl of a cosmic titan. Gadriel felt the weight of destiny pulling him upward, threads of living memory weaving into his armor, binding him to the heart. Eli's cried out, reaching for him. Veros held her back gently, sorrow hollowing his voice. He was chosen, and chosen things rarely return. The Inquisitor lay broken in the mud, staring at the Ascension with hollow eyes. What are you becoming? He rasped. Gadriel looked down at him, expression carved from sorrow. What you feared. The storm swallowed his words, spinning faster, drawing him toward the radiant heart of remembrance. Gadriel rose into the storm's center, suspended within a vortex of ancient light. The heart fused with him, its crystalline surface melting into his armor, until there was no separation, only one being, memory incarnate. His voice echoed across the valley, layered and eternal. No more forgetting, no more erasure. The ground split. Pillars of light shot upward, carving the sky with lines of impossible geometry. Soldiers dropped their weapons in terror. The corrupted faithful knelt, weeping. Eli's whispered his name, but it no longer belonged to a mortal tongue. The storm contracted, suddenly, violently, collapsing inward like a dying star. A single pulse of blinding radiance erupted, silent, instantaneous. When the light faded, Gadriel was gone. The heart was gone. Only a crater of molten glass remained, glowing faintly with aftermages of remembered worlds. Silence fell, heavy and absolute. Soldiers staggered through drifting ash. The monoliths dimmed, their runes flickering like dying embers. Eli's walked to the crater's edge, her steps slow, as though gravity itself mourned. She knelt, placing her hand upon the warm glass. She felt nothing of Gadriel, no echo, no whisper, only the certainty that he existed somewhere beyond reach, carrying the memories of 1,000 lost civilizations. Veros approached, wiping grime from his face. He saved us, he said quietly, or condemned us, or both. Eli's nodded, unable to speak. Behind them, Malcora rose unsteadily, leaning on her staff. He has become what the Imperium fears most, she whispered, a witness. The storm clouds thinned, revealing a wounded sky. A new dawn began to bleed across the horizon. Thale gathered the surviving soldiers, their faces ghost-pale. The Inquisitor was dragged away, mumbling incoherently, his mind fractured by truths he spent a lifetime denying. No one celebrated, no one mourned properly. The battle's end felt like a question without an answer. Eli stood alone at the crater, watching the faint glow fade inch by inch. She whispered a prayer not to the Emperor, but to Gadriel, to whatever he had become, to the burden he now carried. Veros placed a hand on her shoulder. "Something eternal shifted today," he said, "and the galaxy will feel it." She nodded, eyes fixed on the last dying shimmer of light. The wind carried away the ash, the silence deepened, and the world, aching with memory, waited for what came next. Dawn crept over the glassed crater like a timid survivor, its pale light reflecting off the molten mirror left by Gadriel's ascension. The world seemed afraid to breathe, as though the wrong exhalation might disturb the lingering memory of him. Elise watched the horizon fracture into shades of cold gold, each glint bearing an echo of the truth that had nearly torn the valley apart. The air still smelled of ozone and sorrow. Her gauntlet hovered above the crater's surface, sensing warmth that no longer belonged to flesh or flame, but to remembrance itself. She imagined Gadriel drifting somewhere beyond mortal reach, not dead but transformed an echo carried by the Imperium, a guardian of truths too heavy for living minds. In the stillness, she felt both comfort and terror. A universe so vast could swallow anything, even a miracle. Veros stood behind her, helmet beneath his arm, his expression carved from fatigue. He looked older than he had the night before, as if memory itself had leached years from him. "We will be questioned," he said quietly, "interrogated, perhaps executed." His voice held no fear, only resignation. Elise nodded, her gaze never leaving the crater. "But we are the last who saw what truly happened," she answered. "And the Imperium does not easily kill witnesses. It cannot afford to silence openly." Veros gave a hollow laugh. "The Imperium kills anything, openly or not." The wind shifted, carrying the distant cries of wounded soldiers and the crackle of dying fires. Elise closed her eyes. Gadriel had defied oblivion, but could they? Malcora approached slowly, leaning heavily on her staff. Her eyes were dimmed, the connection to the heart severed, leaving behind an emptiness she wore like mourning cloth. She looked upon the crater as one might look at the grave of a saint. "He is not gone," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "He is dispersed." A constellation of memory scattered across the warp. Veros frowned, uncomfortable with her mysticism. But Elise understood. She felt it, to a faint pulse, like distant drumming in the marrow of her bones. Malcora touched the molten glass, her fingers shaking. "Remembering is a kind of suffering," she murmured. "But forgetting, that is the beginning of death." The words lingered like incense smoke, too fragile to grasp, too sacred to dismiss. Thale approached next, his uniform tattered. His men gathered behind him like ghosts, awaiting absolution. They bore stretchers and broken banners, remnants of a force that no longer knew what it had fought for. Thale looked at Elise with a soldier's weary clarity. "Orders will come," he said. "Someone will claim victory. Someone else will declare heresy. And we will be expected to choose." The weight of decision pressed down on them like a cathedral collapsing. Elise met his gaze. "We choose survival," she replied, "but survival with truth still beating somewhere inside us." Thale swallowed hard, as if honesty itself were difficult to digest after years of sanctioned obedience. "Truth is dangerous," he said. Eli's nodded. "So is faith." The Inquisitor had been taken away into a medical transport, strapped to restraints as he murmured broken fragments of the visions forced upon him. His power armor lay abandoned in the dust, its purity seals shredded and drifting like dead petals. Acolytes moved around it with a horror normally reserved for relics found desecrated. They whispered about corruption, about the need to contain the narrative before it spread. Eli's watched from afar, knowing they would try to reshape the story into something palatable for Imperial doctrine. But the crater was too vast, the storm too loud, the light too undeniable. Even the most controlled version of events could not erase the scars carved into the planet's flesh. "They will lie," Varro said quietly. "As they always do," Eli's replied. "But the lie will limp." The surviving soldiers sat among the shattered monoliths, patching armor and binding wounds. Some prayed, others stared blankly at nothing, trying to assemble the shattered pieces of their convictions. One young guardsman approached Eli's, his hands trembling. "Sergeant, did he ascend or did he die?" She looked at him, seeing in his eyes the fragile spark of faith, desperate for direction. "He became what he was meant to be," she said. The guardsman struggled with the ambiguity, but nodded slowly, accepting it as soldiers often accepted impossible orders. When he left, Varro sighed. "You didn't answer him," Eli's replied softly. "There is no answer he could survive." Night returned early that day, as though the sun itself feared to linger over a battlefield where memory had become a weapon. Fires flickered across the valley, reflecting off the crater's glass-like glimmers of trapped souls. Eli's walked alone among the ruins, her thoughts drifting like wandering ghosts. She remembered Gadriel before the storm, before the heart awakened him humble, burdened, terrified of the truth he carried. She wondered if ascension was mercy or punishment. Sometimes becoming more than human meant losing everything that made one human in the first place. She whispered into the darkness, "Did you choose this, or were you chosen?" The crater gave no answer, but the wind stirred, almost tenderly, as if brushing her cheek with a memory. Malcora joined her, her silhouette a crooked shadow against the dim glow. "The heart sought him because he was pure," she said. "Not pure of doctrine or blood, pure of intent." Eli's nodded. He carried the Imperium inside him, the dream of what it was supposed to be. Malcora's eyes glimmered with sorrow. And dreams often require sacrifices the waking world cannot comprehend. They stood in silence as the night deepened, the stars flickering faintly, though some seemed brighter, sharper, as if newly kindled. Elise found herself wondering if one of them was Gadriel, or if he was now the space between stars, the silent places where memory gathered like dust. As the hours passed, transports arrived to retrieve the dead and wounded. Administratum scribes took notes. Servitors collected data. Already, the machinery of the Imperium was stitching a new narrative from the wreckage. Thale approached Eli's one last time. "We'll be redeployed soon," he said. "A new front, a new war, the same lies." Eli's looked at him, her resolve steady. "But we will carry the truth with us, quietly, patiently, until its time comes." Thale hesitated, then saluted her not as a superior, but as someone who had seen something divine and terrible and survived. She returned the gesture, feeling the weight of a future she could neither predict nor escape. Morning broke again, gentle and solemn, the sky washed clean as though the storm had wept all night. The crater still glimmered faintly, a wound refusing to heal. Eli stood at its edge, alone, committing its final glow to memory. She knew the Imperium would bury this place under a shrine or a quarantine seal or a classified vault. But she also knew that true memory could not be contained. Gadriel had ensured that. As she turned to leave, she wondered, is faith the strength to believe what we are told, or the courage to seek what is hidden? And in a galaxy drowning in war, who decides which truth is worth dying for? If this tale carried you into the heart of the Imperium's shadows, like, subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments.